everyone, and welcome to Conversations with Curio, where we get curious about how your financial life is impacted by a variety of different issues. I'm Liz Gillette, founder and senior financial advisor, and I'm joined by my colleague, Stefan Revelo, advisor here at Curio. And today we're going to talk about the connection between our health and our finances. What do you think, Stefan?
I'm very excited for this episode today. This is obviously a big part of our job, and finances and money in general, it impacts our lives in every way possible. The way we eat, taking care of ourselves, taking care of our families, paying for bills, enjoying luxury experiences or items. Money is how we interact with the world pretty much every single day. And with that comes a lot of stress, comes a lot of just different feelings as relates to your finances. So today we're gonna dive deeper into that topic of just how it affects our overall well-being, ways that we can avoid lifestyle creep, and ways to kind of plan for unforeseen problems, either health or external things that we can't control. We're also here joined by our lovely new intern here, Penelope. This is a kind of a tradition that we do on our podcast where we feature our intern in one of our episodes. So that's what we're here doing today. So I'm glad to kind of have Penelope here. She'll be helping kind of guide our conversation and ask some questions around these various topics. So how you doing, Penelope?
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me on this podcast. I'm super excited to, dive into these topics and talk about, physical health and mental health and how they play a part and are intertwined with finances because both are such a big part of having a long, healthy, and good life and experience. So, kind of like we're going to dive right into it, overall topic. How does financial stress affect your clients' mental and physical health, and what can they do about setting themselves up for success in the future? For what can they do now to prevent, long-term expenses, and how can they mitigate those financial stresses that maybe play a part on their relationships and how they take care of their families? Liz, if you want to start off.
Damn. Penelope did not tell us these questions in advance, so you're about to see our real answers. Okay. Fantastic question, Penelope. As always, we wouldn't expect anything less. So the impact that we typically see with our clients, the impact of financial stress, ironically, whether a client is doing well and has a lot of financial needs to be able to work with to supplement their life and enjoy what they're looking to achieve, or if a client's in a position where they're feeling that traditional financial strain where they don't have enough resources to be able to live their life, I would say it actually shows up the same in both scenarios. Typically, we see it as this looming cloud for a lot of people, where you are going and you're working in your job, but in the back of your mind, you have this nagging feeling, am I doing right by my money, right? If I have some extra to put somewhere every single month, am I putting it in the right place? How do I decide between saving for retirement and saving for my kids' college? And what about that vacation that we want to go on? And so where Stefan and I sit, a big part of our role is helping people find peace of mind through creating a plan. So the end goal is not really that financial plan, that piece of paper. Typically, the end goal is the peace of mind that they get from saying, I feel confident that I'm optimizing the dollars that are coming through to myself, to my partner, to my family. So we typically see it show up as marital stress, not being on the same page back and forth about the goals that you have or how you want to spend your money. That's pretty common. I think that exists in almost every imperfect relationship, right? And we also see it come in the form of feeling restricted in the job that you're currently in, feeling like, okay, because we don't make these financial decisions that we feel confident in, I have to stay in this job that I don't like. I have to pursue this path that I said I was going to pursue because I don't know how we'd be able to support ourselves without it. So in both scenarios, freedom and peace of mind is what it looks like on the other end. It doesn't mean that you have all the resources in the world to achieve your goals. You can still find freedom in that second scenario I mentioned, where you're kind of living within restriction of what your means offer. You can still find a way to feel confident that you're putting your dollars in the best place. So taking that stress off of people's plate is a really fantastic feeling.
Yeah, no, and if I quickly add a little bit there, just the idea of stress and all these things come into our life that we don't know are directly tied to finances. I mean, with our clients, it's funny. A lot of our clients often say, "Oh, you guys are basically marriage counselors as well," because a lot of the issues that they're experiencing, most of the times, finances are attached to it somehow. Most of the time, it's not the direct problem. A lot of our clients are doing well. They have healthy savings rates. They make a healthy income. So it's not that they're a direct problem from money, but when it comes to how big of a house do we purchase? Do we send our kids to a private school versus a public? Those are impacts on your family, but money is required to execute those things. And I kind of like when Penelope was creating the kind of overall outline for this podcast of talking about like just personal physical health and how that relates to finances. Because I always like to use those two examples because the way you achieve both are extremely similar. If you look at just getting in shape, the idea of everybody generally knows to get in shape, you eat less and you move around more. And that's kind of the simple, basic outline of the same thing with money. You spend less than you make, and then you invest the remaining amount. That is all. That is a lot easier said than done. It's a lot harder to do that in practice. With the gym or physical health, for example, you go to the gym every single day, and you don't see a result up front. Like that is like the part you don't experience the benefits or see the results on your body for a very long time. So every day you go to the gym, every day you're eating less, you're eating better. But in the short term, you're not seeing a long-term effect. And money works the same exact way. In the beginning of your career, obviously, if you're fresh out of high school or fresh out of college, you're not making that much money. And that's just it's not your fault. It's not the fault of anybody else. It's just you're learning your skills and you're beginning of your career. So you have to do the little things up front. That's saving $50 a day. That's deciding not to be in a super expensive apartment or buy an expensive brand new car. You got to make these decisions that you're not going to see the benefit for a very long time. In the very beginning of your saving and the beginning of your finance journey, you're working hard, you're doing the hard things, you're trying to live below your means, but you're not seeing a tangible benefit at that time, which that's usually the main reason why people struggle to stay on course. Is because they start to not see anything. So they think if this doesn't work for me now, what's the point of continuing to do this? Same thing as the gym, where you go to the gym, you don't see any results. So it's like, what is this all for? So I always like to look at those two in tandem because a lot of the ways you achieve the body or the physical health that you want to achieve, all that same discipline, the same kind of values to get to that goal relates to finances. And they're often very correlated with each other in terms of you got to do something for a long time and delay the benefit, which can be very hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I always like looking at those two because there's just a lot you can learn from each side of it.
Yeah, and you can spin your wheels in both, right? You can go to the gym, and if you're exercising instead of training, it's kind of how I think of it. Like if you're just being random and sporadic, you're reading an article about how to invest your money and you're jumping on a train, then you're jumping off a train, and then you're talking to a friend and you're jumping on that train, you're jumping off another one. You can often get yourself in a rat race and not really make any progress. So it's about that consistency, as you said, Stefan, and I think that's a really big component of it, because I know the end of Penelope's question was what can people do to get on track, and that's really what you covered, living below your means, having open communication with your partner as a whole, and recognizing that these short-term inconveniences of saving for your future saves you a lot of long-term strain of financial duress.
Mm-hmm. No, I love that analogy of, working out and setting yourself up for success financially. I think that perfectly summed up what you can do, and staying consistent is one of the most important things to set yourself up for success. So when you set yourself up for success and you're working your job and you're getting raises and bonuses and your income is rising, how do you help clients avoid that lifestyle creep and spending more money because you're making more money while still spending on things that align with, their values and their well-being? What if, because they're making more money, they want to spend more money at a super expensive gym? Is that a good idea? Is that not a good idea? Should they stay at the same gym? Should they buy more produce, more organic foods? Walk us through what they should and should not do and what you guys would advise. Stefan, do you want to start?
Yeah. No, I love that question. This is kind of I feel like my bread and butter when it comes to money and how to deal with it. And avoiding lifestyle creep is essentially the number one way to kind of ensure that you're going to have long-term financial success. So basically, all lifestyle creep means is that as your income goes up, so does your lifestyle and your living. We often hear this with our clients that are in the kind of, they just are growing their family, for example. So let's say they're in their late 30s, early 40s, and they'll make comments to us like, oh, we don't want to live like we did when we were in college, or we don't want to live and scrap by like we did in our early 20s. Obviously, when you have less resources and less income coming in, you're not able to do as much as well. And as your skill set increases over time, as your income increases over time, you pretty much have two options when that occurs. You can increase savings and increase your investing rate, or you can increase your lifestyle. A lot of people, the average person in America, typically goes on, they'll increase their lifestyle. Just little examples I often hear are when somebody gets a pay raise at work. Oh, I got a $700 a month pay raise. That's amazing. But then they tell us we just bought a brand new car as well to celebrate, and our car payment is $650. And they don't understand, can they afford that? Yeah, they just got an increase in pay. That matches the amount with the expense. Yeah, that's gonna work with the budget. But what they don't see is that they essentially just wiped away their raise. What could have been a potential and this great thing to load up more money for the future, set yourself up for long-term success, is now just being used to pay off the debt, which is a positive thing, but it wasn't the most strategic or the most optimized way to spend that money or spend that increase in lifestyle. And this is obviously very hard to balance, especially, I mean, right now, I feel like I'm in the thick of a big transition in my life as I don't have kids yet. I'm not married. These are certain things that I want to occur. So when those things happen, my lifestyle naturally will increase. So we're not saying you can never increase your lifestyle. You must live like you're a 22-year-old on rice and beets. That's certainly not the kind of message you want to relay. We do want to say that sacrifices have to be made. So Penelope mentioned spending money on your values, what matters most to you. Our goal is not to make people feel restricted and say you can't spend your money or enjoy it. That is not the point of our job. Our job is to help people identify what's most important to them and make sure we spend the most on those items. So hear what I just said. If it's not, no, you're not allowed to travel and you need to save that money because you need to ensure your kid's financial future. No, the idea, if travel is a super important component, is all right, what sacrifices can we make in other areas that don't matter to you as much? If that's eating out, if that's going to concerts or events, can we scale back in those areas to ensure that we're able to spend more money on travel? So it's just really all about being intentional with your money. And as you continue to make more money and success comes your way, complexity will naturally find you. So it's just important to stay grounded and to remember what's most important to you and not get carried away with fancy cars or housing or what the mainstream phrase of keeping up with the Joneses and trying to compare yourself to people around you. None of that really matters. If someone's that willing to give you money, you should not care about their opinion of you. That's kind of what I try to practice in my life. So lifestyle creep is very easy to fall into, and it's hard to do the part of let me just keep my expenses low and continue to save more. But that actually is one of the key drivers to continuing to grow your wealth and continuing to create stability. I mean, forget even growing wealth. You want to just be able to sleep at night, and avoiding lifestyle creep, avoiding you spending more money will help you kind of keep your sanity and keep a healthy mind frame.
Yeah, those are such amazing opportunities when you get those increases in income. And if you don't have a plan for it, your money will make a plan without you. It'll its way out that door. Penelope, this is another fantastic question. So I have two thoughts taken in everything that Stefan said. My first is that, there often feels like there's a disconnect between making healthy choices and making good financial decisions. When you ask about some of those questions of buying organic groceries or going to the gym that supports your health, but those things tend to be more expensive. As a recovering couponer, in my early 20s who noticed that all the coupons were never for good food and organic food. They were all for, Chef Boyardee and stuff. I'd very much see that disconnect. And that's one of the challenges in our country. So that takes me to my second point. I think what we should think about is the ratio of the reward. So if you're asking about lifestyle creep as a whole, your health is a pretty good one to choose to increase your lifestyle, right? So as Stefan mentioned, you could be spending more on experiences, which we're big fans of, collecting experiences rather than things, but certainly doing something that impacts your long-term health can be thought of as an investment towards your future. Now, I personally don't think you need to belong to Equinox Gym to get a good workout in. I think you've bought into some kind of craze at that point. But yeah, I'm kind of thinking of it as a ratio. So if you're early off in your career and you're putting 5 to 10% of your money away towards your future, whether that's retirement, paying off debt, saving up for a house, let's just say you have like smart discretionary dollars of 10%. I don't want you rewarding yourself with that same equal amount of money, of that 10% of spending in other areas. So I see it as like, if you did something great, if you saved 10% of your money toward retirement, then you can support yourself in that Pilates class that you get 4 classes a month, not unlimited package. Maybe that's not where you should be at when you're saving 10% of your money. Then you get up to 15% of your money. Hell, maybe 20%. By the time you're saving or have that much money going toward your financial future, you can reward yourself with bigger goals. So those lifestyle creep areas, maybe you would like to do a monthly massage for your sore muscles, right? Maybe we're talking a lot about physical health. Maybe we could get into mental health or seeing a therapist or keeping yourself in a good mental state, going to a chiropractor, whatever that is working for that person, that should be in alignment with how much they're saving towards their future. So when we start to look at someone's financial picture, regardless of where the money's going, and this much is going toward their future, but this much is going toward their enjoyment and their lifestyle creep, that just represents an unhealthy pattern that we'd want to get to the bottom of. So I guess to give a very distinct answer to the organic groceries and the gym, kind of question would be, as you are making these decisions and deciding what your priorities are, if you feel that you can afford the organic groceries and you can still put 10% of money away toward retirement, that seems like a reasonable ratio to me. I don't want nothing going toward your future and you've bought yourself into all these subscription services for health. That is where it's you're setting yourself up for an insecure financial future.
No, that's a great answer. So what I'm hearing from both of you is that you have to, lifestyle creep can be a real problem if you don't have it and reflect on yourself and have it align with your values and prioritize what you want to achieve out of life, what experiences you want to have, but also making sure that you want to make sure that you are also staying healthy, but in a ratio that is consistent with your savings, and you want to make sure that you're always saving money. And if that income happens to increase, save more and then spend a little bit more on your overall well-being. That's a great answers. But on the flip side of that, I'm thinking, what advice would you give to clients who maybe don't have the means to spend money on the gym or spend money on a lot of organic whole produce, and they are just making it by and but they still want to focus on eating healthy and staying active and enjoying those experiences like we talked about, but they feel like their budget is constantly holding them back? What advice would you guys have for them?
Yeah. Kind of trying to take care of yourself or take care of your family when money is tight can be tough, especially if both parents are working, for example, and they're at work all day and they come home and they're too tired to cook. So they think, oh, let's just eat out. Let's just order some food in, just for time's sake, just because I'm exhausted. I didn't have time to get to the groceries, which is a common theme. I mean, I've experienced that in my own life. So the key to fixing that, I would say, is 2 words. Is a crock pot. That has been my bread and butter, in terms of being able to make food in the morning before the workday, letting it marinate for 8-10 hours, and you come home and you have a nice kind of protein. If it's chicken, if it's meat, you have it made already. And then you could take the 10 minutes and 15 minutes to make a side of rice or make some pasta on the side. So that's a very specific answer. But overall, in terms of the overall theme of things you can do, I would say the first is first you got to face the problem up front. And I think that's with anything. That's with your relationships. That's with at work. First is identifying like where do you truly stand today? Because I would question, is your money really cash flow tight? Or back to what I was saying before, are we spending it in areas that are not the most optimal? Because the truth is, we all spend money that does not make sense in general. I spend money in ways that Liz and Penelope would think is ridiculous, and vice versa. I mean, everybody has certain things that we indulge in a little more. So the first thing I always do is kind of challenge the idea of I don't have enough money. I would ask questions of how do you know that? When your budget, how much were you allocating towards that? If they can answer that question, they're already ahead of the top 1% of people who are in tune with their finances. I couldn't give you dollar amounts of what I spend in specific categories. So that's kind of the first thing I try to do is kind of hang in there for a little bit and see, is that really the problem or is there something else? And in the event that it truly is an issue and it's like, all right, money is pretty tight. Like, what can we do? Unfortunately, there's no $1 million answer. It's just sacrificing in another area. And that's truly what it comes down to. If eating well and for your health and all that, it's truly that important that if it's something that, no, this is a non-negotiable, then I would say it should be easy to give up another aspect if this piece is super important to you. Again, this is all so much easier said than done. It is so hard to do it when you're in the moment, when you're exhausted, when you're dealing with life's problems outside of finances. So I'm not saying it's just a cut and dry, it's super easy. It's a hard exercise to do. But again, not having money is really hard, and then having a lot of money is really hard too. So like both avenues are very difficult. So it really comes down to you gotta kind of pick which difficulty you rather experience. I would obviously, as a financial advisor, I would say, yeah, pick the route of having more money and deal with the stress that goes with that, of attaining it, because the stress of not having it will just do way more damage to your mental health, to your physical health, to your relationship. It's just, that is not a great avenue to go down. So yeah, those are kind of my high level thoughts when kind of I hear that cash flow can be hard and tight to manage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Liz, do you have any other thoughts? Sorry, I cut you off. Do you have any other thoughts?
No, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I have a few thoughts. I feel in a pretty similar position to Stefan, having been in a similar role. You know, my personal life, it can be very challenging to feel like you can take care of even the basic necessities, based off of what your own personal cash flow, can look like. So Stefan's comment about the crock pot might seem silly, but to me, it's a bigger theme. When you don't have very much differential between what you're bringing in and what's going out the door, you can't afford not to plan ahead. And in just about every area of your finances, planning ahead pays off. So in the traditional ways, planning ahead toward your investments, saving some money now, investing it, letting it compound for the future. If you're going to take a flight and you plan ahead, it's going to be cheaper when you book it, 9 months in advance instead of 1 month. And even in this example, if you're going to wait till you're hungry and at 6 o'clock, then you're going to pull for the food that's maybe not the healthiest, and you're going to spend more money on it, or you're going to do takeout. So I kind of view that as luxury. Time is a luxury. So sometimes these things don't all align in the best way, where you're at a phase of your life where you have the luxury of time, but you don't have the luxury of finances. But let's go with the scenario where you do. You have time on your hand. That's when I got into couponing and said, well, I got time. Maybe I can make the groceries, cost a little bit less. That's where you say, okay, I'm going to map out a plan. I'm going to do the crock pot. I'm going to kind of take that approach. So I think that that's a wise trade-off. And then the other thing is, if you look at your spending and you say, man, here's my income, everything going out the door, even in an honest assessment, it's all going towards needs. Very little is going toward wants. That likely means you have an income problem. So Stefan talked about the option of solving it from a spending problem. But if you're looking at your cash flow and saying all of this money is worthwhile, smart decisions, and it leaves no space for me to have any fun, then you actually need to go around the other side and say, well, wait a second, what can I do with my income? So if your health's that important to you, you pick up a side gig, you pick up a side job, and you say, this is worthwhile because I value my health. So I'm going to find ways to make these other things a priority. So that would really be the solution for me. In that scenario where you're tight on all of it, time and money, those are things where you need to start coming up with a more long-term plan. Is like, is your income tight right now? Or are you working towards some kind of advancement in your career where you can see that gap expanding in the future?
Mm-hmm. No, those are very good points. I love when you talk about planning ahead is the key, is like something that you can kind of take back control. You can control your plan, you can control, what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. So, kind of going off of planning and everything, how do you think that people should be saving and planning for unforeseen, health obstacles, or maybe it's a child that has health concerns, and how can you plan ahead for that and predict what that's going to look like? Liz, start with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Another big one, a scary one, right? Like I had to take a deep breath when you asked that question because it's a bit alarming to think about things that could come and interrupt someone's, yes, their financial life, but most importantly, their actual life, their loved ones and family members. So as a financial advisor, typically we start with something, your emergency fund, regardless of what your financial situation looks like. An emergency fund is a really smart place to start. Sometimes when someone's working through a debt journey, they're not going to have a 6-month emergency fund that's available to them. So we often call it like a starter emergency fund. And we work through it and we say, based off of your other goals, maybe we can't set aside that ideal amount. But if you're already saving cash for another goal, then ultimately we're going to tell you to have a 1-month emergency fund during this window and then increase it over time. So regardless of who you are, having that rainy day fund, emergency fund helps us avoid debt. Because if you don't have that, and sometimes people will come in, prospective clients, and they're hyper focused on their investing to the point that like they're saving and investing all of this money, but they skipped the step where they have an emergency fund. And the way that will show up, Penelope, is they'll have these money invested in the market, all these various accounts, and then credit card debt or a loan for when they had to fix the roof on their house. And, the first few times that happened to me as an advisor, I'm just trying to make sense of it. Like, how does this make sense? You have all that money, but that just means they're hyper focused on the investing piece of it. And they just kind of skip that step where you have that rainy day fund. Beyond that, we typically turn and think about ways that insurance can supplement. So you asked about if someone gets sick or hurt. As everyone knows, Stefan and I are fee-only advisors, so we don't sell products. If we recommend something to you, we don't get commission, we don't get kickback. So that's really helpful for anyone listening to understand, because if we say you need this disability insurance and here's why, you don't have to be wondering whether we have like a second driving force to try to recommend something to pad our own pockets. So disability insurance is an interesting one. 1 out of every 4 people before age 65 will find themselves disabled for 90 days or more and unable to work. And so a lot of people jump, especially with families, to life insurance. What happens if I'm gone? I have to support my family, save for the future. Statistically, you're actually more likely to become disabled during that time period versus life insurance. It's just one is sold easier to people, and so it's kind of top of mind. So we look at a client from a risk management perspective of sickness, not being able to work, unexpected health event. And we start to couple it between cash savings and which insurance products would give you that bang for your buck. You can't insure against everything. That just wouldn't make sense, and that would break your bank. But you can, when you think about insurance, you kind of want to find on 4 quadrants. You want to find that 4th quadrant where it's a high risk, and a relatively lower probability. Right? And then that's where you want to say this is an insurance product worthwhile, because it makes sure that you have a backup plan if something comes into play. So I would say life insurance, disability insurance, emergency fund, and making sure that you're not carrying any high interest debt or you're currently working toward a plan. Those are great financial buffers to have in place because none of us knows what the future holds. So that's why when we model plans for our clients, we always model all these challenges into their financial plan so that nothing can come as a surprise to them to be able to work through.
There's Stefan. Any last quick final words on that topic?
Yeah, no, the emergency savings cash and insurance are, like Liz said, those are the kind of the 2 things we can do to protect ourselves. I feel like I'm dealing this in live time. So I have some dental work that I need to get done. And the initial quote my dentist sent me says, "Oh, all in, it was about a little over $2,000 procedure. You'll be $300 out of pocket. Will you pay?" I was like, "Beautiful." She did say this may not be the final amount. We haven't sent it to the insurance company yet, my dental insurance. We'll let you know the final price. I said, "Beautiful." I go in tomorrow. I get a text yesterday. I'm doing two like little procedures. The one that's a lot of money is not being covered, unfortunately, by my insurance. She was very apologetic, and she was just telling me, "Oh, I know," like told, and she did tell me this is not the final number because we have not heard back from the insurance company. When she did hear back, she's like, "Unfortunately, we can still do whatever repair, and that's gonna be $300, one portion of it, and the other one was like 1,700, which again, it's all amount of finance is all relative. To me, in my stage of life, that is a lot of money. That I was like, damn, I was not expecting to come up with that out of nowhere. Uh, so my question is, do I do the procedure? Do I wait? How do I look at it? This kind of is a mix of everything because insurance is included. It's covering a piece, but this major procedure wouldn't cover it. So now I'm tapping into the emergency fund piece. So I do have kind of cash off to the side that's there for an emergency. She told me this was an emergency. I said, "How long can I delay this thing?" I'm paying her as a professional. We have a really good relationship. She's like, "I think you should like, is that urgent? So if you didn't get it the day you come in, it's not the end of the world, but it is highly recommended that you do it in a very short, within the next couple months." So that was enough for me. I'm gonna trust a professional here. Hopefully she has my best interest at heart. But now I'll be tapping into my emergency fund to help cover some costs that the insurance did not. So I just thought I'd share that just because it's just a perfect depiction of I was not expecting this thing to come up of this kind of dental care of $2,000. Insurance didn't work out. I had that in place, so now I have to kind of turn to the cash, which is acting as my short-term insurance. It's not insurance per se. It's obviously not a product. It's just cash, but it's playing the role of helping me with expense that I was not expecting. I just thought, yeah, I know that's I'm dealing with that a lifetime. So I'll let you know how that goes.
Mhm. No, that's a great analogy and great example of, having that emergency fund, pairing it with a little bit of insurance, and even still, you didn't know that you were going to have to pay the most expensive one. So that's a great example, Stefan.
Yeah, and I was sitting thinking about that time. I was 8 months pregnant in the summer, and the air conditioning broke. And I was headed into an unpaid maternity leave, and I was like, even as a financial advisor, I did not expect this to happen. And so, yeah, I think doing the best that you can do, Penelope, it almost takes us back to that original point that
Mhm.
like you need to have that differential in your cash flow between what you spend and what you bring in, because the only guarantee is that these monkey wrenches, that's life. Like is that things are going to get in the way and they're going to derail your plans. So Stefan and I try to encourage our clients when they start using their emergency fund, we say, great, that's what it's there for, because it even feels crappy. You save up money and then you go to spend it, but then you guilt yourself into why am I using this money? It's like you're using it for what its purpose is. So, all right, Stefan, want to bring us home and tell people where they can find us and learn a little bit more about Curio? Well,
Yeah. Well, first, I think if you're out there listening to our subscribers, my dad, I know he watches every episode of me, so I know at least he'll be there to give me some feedback. So please drop a like, please comment, share it with a friend. If you found any value out of this episode, thank you, Penelope. I know she's a first time kind of couple this, so appreciate you kind of driving this conversation. But yeah, please, you'll find us anywhere where your podcasts are. So you can find us on our YouTube, directly on our Curio Wealth website, where you also find blog posts from all of our advisors talking about their various specialties and expertise. So please share it, please like, comment, and we look forward to see you guys in the next episode.
yeah. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Penelope. You crushed it.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.
Bye.